Hey guys, Chris here. I wanted to make this video to help you guys out in your Beaver building. Got a question on the Facebook page from Christoph. He says, "Hey Bees, what are your best practices to combine a fixed content row setting for text with full width content setting for column backgrounds?" So basically he wants to set his background to stretch full screen to the sides. He wants to have a background, either color or image, on the columns, but the actual text he doesn't want to go all the way to the end. And I've set this example up here. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So right here we've got two. Let me show you on here. We've got two Beaver Builder rows. I got a column here with a background color of gray with some text, and on this side I've got just a background image. Now the row settings are set to full width, and that's how the background color and image are able to go all the way to the side. So when you change the view size, you can see that the text on some areas is going all the way to the end of the screen because it's set as full width, because you want the column background to go full width. However, he wants to be able to do a fixed width for the row content. So let me change it to fixed width. And on this one, and as you can see, we've got a fixed width of 1100 pixels, but unfortunately that messes with the background color setting. So you got this white gap on both sides here. So that's the issue that he's trying to figure out, how to achieve the best of both worlds. So clearly you can see, on smaller screen sizes it's not so much of an issue, but on the larger screens he wants the background color to go all the way to the end of the screen. And so he's asking how he can achieve this, and luckily you can achieve it with CSS Grid. So that's why I want to make this video, to show you how to do that. So I'm going to open up Beaver Builder, and instead of using the traditional Beaver Builder columns, we're going to go completely inside the grid. So I'm going to just make a copy of this text here, and I'm going to drag this to a new row. It's just going to be a single row, and let's set up some background. Let's set up the background color for this one. I'm going to make the text white, and background color, let's do gray. And then as far as the margins, we want to make sure there's no margins on anything, so I'm going to go through, make sure they're all set to 0. And then on the row settings, I'm going to set those margins all to 0 as well. Let's make that 0. And then the same thing on small and medium devices, everything I'm going to 0 out. Okay, and then I'm going to just delete this for now. So all we're dealing with is just the text editor on a single Beaver Builder column on one row. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off by editing the row settings, and we're going to basically split this in half, make it half the column size to be half. So I'm going to activate, I'm on the row settings, I'm going to go to the advanced tab, activate CSS Grid. We're just going to go to the simple mode, and I'm going to give it 2 columns. I'm just going to give each column a width of 1 fraction unit, so 1 FR, 1 FR. So that alone will put this column on just the left side 50%, because each one is a fraction unit. So we're going to save that. Now the issue is what we're going to do for the column itself is we're going to actually turn that into its own grid. So I'm going to go to the column settings on this one, and I'm going to go down to CSS Grid, activate CSS Grid, and in this example we're going to go to the advanced mode for that one. So that way we can just play around with the CSS. And what we're going to do is, first I'm going to establish the grid template column settings. And for starters, we're just going to do one fraction unit like we did before, just to give you an example. So basically, we're going to split that in half, and just bear with me. What I also want to do is I want to also isolate this text module. We need to give that a grid area name. So I'm just going to copy this right here, and then I'm going to give it a class of FL module. Since there's only one module in this, that's all. We don't need to worry about anything else. And I'm going to give it a grid area name, and we're just going to call it text. Okay. So now that we've done that, you can see it's kind of messed up at first, but once we establish where we want the grid template areas to be, that's where the magic happens. So grid template areas, and then we'll do a double quotation mark, and I'm going to do a dot. That's going to signify the first grid template is going to be nothing, and then the second grid template we're going to type in the grid area name for text. So you see it's starting to take a little bit more shape here, and then we'll put a column there. Okay, so now we've got basically this left half is its own CSS grid. I've established that the grid is going to have two columns, and the first one is blank. That's where we have the dot, and the second one, which is this text, that's where I tell it to put the text. And so now, if we want to make it mimic having a fixed width background like we did before, we gotta change what we wrote here on the template columns. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, instead of the first one, which is going to be this space over here, I'm just going to set that to auto. And it's probably not going to change. Okay, well, it changed a little bit there. And then the second one, we're going to do a min max. And then the minimum width is also going to be auto. And then a comment. And the max width, and I'm going to set that to 550 pixels. And basically, because this thing is half the width, like before when I had a fixed content width of 1100, and since this is only taking up half the screen, I divided 1100 by 2 and you get 550 pixels. So that is all you need to do basically. Like I said, the first column is just automatically filling in, and then the second column, a minimum of automatics that way on the smaller screen sizes, and then a maximum of 550 because it's half the screen, and it mimics the fixed width of 1100 pixels, and whatever you want your fixed width to be, just do half of that, and that is all. So let me save that, and then I'll show you on let's go back to the responsive settings. So as you can see, when I stretch it smaller, it's still responsive, and it's acting just like fixed width for the content, except the background color is going all the way to the end, as if it is full width. So let me do the second one. I'm basically just going to duplicate this row. It's the column settings is what I'm looking for. So instead of background color, we're going to do a photo background. I'm going to select this one, and then we'll give it an overlay black and 70% to make it look kind of the same. Okay, so before on the row settings, I told it to take up half the row by giving it one fraction unit for each. But here we're going to do a little bit something different. It's still going to be one fraction unit each, but we need to tell it that we want this to be on the second half, and since there's only one of them, we need to fill in a gap. We need to make an extra space for it, so we're going to do it by this. I'm going to go to column settings, and I want to give this a grid item class name, and we'll just call it text2 since it's the second class. And then going back to the row settings, we're going to edit the grid item, and I'm going to isolate that class. I'm just going to call this text2 so it knows that it's going to be dealing with that. And then for the grid area, since this is a two column grid, there are 3 grid lines, and so I want this to start at the first row, but the second column, and then end at the second row line and in the third column. And if you're not sure what this means, look at some of my other videos where I explain this a lot better. So I'm just going to hit save for now, and that puts it over here. So now the grid is on, this grid's on the second side, but you can see this doesn't look the way we quite want it. So I'm going to adjust these column settings, and this might be a little bit easier than what I did before. So instead of having a dot and a text here, I'm going to move the text over here and the dot and get rid of this. And then instead of having auto and min max, I'm going to get rid of the auto, and I'm going to put the auto over on for the second column, just like that. And that is all. So now, as you can see, fully responsive. The column setting is acting as if it were the column background is acting as if it were full width, and the text is still acting as if it were fixed width.